Okay, I literally just came out of this, so I'm still a little shaken, but wanted to get it down as soon as possible so it's hopefully as clear as it can be. I've done DMT twice now. Both were relatively small doses and involved a nice warm feeling and cool patterns and distortions. Nothing much. This time, I decide to up the dose, as you do, to about double what I've been having. I felt the pull and closed my eyes. I was in a weirdly distorted room that had some kind of box entity shifting in the corner. I couldn't tell if it was friendly or sinister at first. It was just a mesh of different shapes, patterns, and faces. Then I got an uneasy feeling in my stomach, and immediately, as if sensing my fear, this weird box entity just exploded into lots of different demonic entities, like trees and roots rapidly expanding everywhere. It was terrifying. So silly me thinking I can escape this place by opening up my eyes, but that's when all hell broke loose. I was back in my room, but it wasn't my room. It was an utterly grotesque, distorted, demonic version of my room. I never knew all the objects in my room could be so fucking scary. I tried to take a drink of water, and even my water bottle looked like a demon that was jagged and sharp. Wasn't putting it anywhere near my mouth. Slowly, my room started closing in on me. All the objects were getting closer and scarier, all with twisted demonic clown faces that seemed to be openly mocking me and laughing at my fear. The only thing that got me through the experience was holding on to the thought I'd be back in reality soon. I would leave this terrifying place behind. Finally coming down, my back was absolutely drenched in sweat, and as I said, I'm really shaken up. That place I visited was absolutely terrifying. I felt fine going into the trip, and 10 seconds in, I immediately knew it was a mistake and wanted out. My biggest mistake was opening my eyes. But yeah, definitely hesitant to ever try DMT again now, and also have a lot of questions about the afterlife. If that's what's on the other side, fuck, I never want to die. I have honestly never been so afraid in my entire life. I've had many really intense experiences of consciousness in this lifetime, both with and without drugs. Probably the most interesting of these are the 100 or so out-of-body experiences which I've encountered. That is, experiences where one loses awareness of the body, yet conscious awareness persists. Many years ago, after a number of such experiences induced primarily by DMT and ayahuasca, I became motivated to pursue out-of-body experiences induced from a sober state. After about a year of concentrated research and practice, I became able to do so regularly. I became able to consciously disconnect awareness from my body from a sober state, and yet continue to move without a physical body. To think, to be. Out-of-body experiences induced from a sober state end, for me, to be commonly rooted in what we know as normal reality. I still see things in my environment, like my room or my house, still maintain my sense of self and ability to think, yet I am also able to do things like fly, teleport, and move through walls. I no longer have a body, only a roving consciousness. Conversely, chemically assisted out-of-body experiences have largely taken place on other mental planes. Such experiences can vary dramatically from one to the next, but generally my consciousness is propelled somewhere completely different. I maintain my ability to think and remember who I am, but have no sense of familiarity with my environment. In some cases, these environments are akin to normal waking reality, just in different and unusual places such as an unknown factory or a strange theater. Most times, though, these experiences occur in worlds that are completely foreign to me. Endless fields of morphing geometric shapes give way to alien worlds that sometimes contain highly intelligent entities. The most intense of these experiences result in ego death. No more sense of self or even ability to remember. Sometimes I pursued these experiences for purely spiritual and/or therapeutic purposes. Other times, motivations were less noble. All of these experiences, however, share some common characteristics. They are incredibly vivid, oftentimes feeling much more real than even reality. They nearly always begin the same way, with a massive energy surge in my chest. The energy expands and accelerates until it explodes out of my head and devours my entire body. I attribute this to the chakras, energy centers, in the body bursting open and flooding me with pure, unbridled energy. It feels like warmth, love, and conscious, intelligent, vibrating energy. Entheogens such as mescaline, psilocybin, LSD, and to some degree, even MDMA, have also facilitated for me these same feelings, though I've never lost my awareness of my body while interacting with only them. This brief background is meant only to provide context for the experience described below, one whose sheer intensity far exceeded anything in my conscious memory before or since. What follows is by far the most powerful, bizarre, ineffable, significant experience of my life. I'd gone out drinking after work for a coworker's last day. I'd had perhaps 9 drinks and was most certainly feeling it. Afterwards, I came home and was hanging out with 2 friends. We continued drinking, started smoking bowls, and did a few lines. We began passing around the DMT pipe. After a few rotations around the circle over the course of an hour or so, I loaded a particularly large bowl of DMT, one of my largest ever. Friend number 1 smoked first, but only put a minor dent in the huge bowl. As I took my hit and sat down the pipe, I remember friend 1 saying that he wished he could take hits so massive, indicating that my hit was exceptionally large, which I'm certain it truly was. I use a freebase pipe, which facilitates incredibly dense hits. My usual routine is to hold the flame under the bowl for a few seconds until it erupts in smoke, take a massive rip, then carefully and quickly place the pipe down beside me before laying back on the bed and closing my eyes. After that, I simply let go and open myself as completely as possible, the ability to do so being the result of much experience. As memory serves, I had a typical yet incredibly powerful DMT trip. As per usual in these powerful experiences, letting go is utterly essential, absolutely required. Letting go of everything, accepting death, no fear. The alternative is panic, as you struggle, often in vain, to resist. To me, one of the less desirable aspects of this ultimate letting go is the frequent requirement to let go even of the ability to remember. The conscious intensity of these experiences is inherently ineffable. Such was the case in this instance. I quickly became immersed in 360-degree morphing geometric fractals, which gave way to the indescribably alien environments, which are something totally different before I am able to fully comprehend them. I lost awareness of my body for a few minutes, and then returned with virtually no memory of the bulk of the experience, only fleeting memories as if from a strange dream, and lingering feelings of an oddly pleasant, mysteriously familiar energy. I don't mean to downplay the significance of these types of experiences, but compared to what followed, it just doesn't feel noteworthy. Sometime later, minutes I think, I was sitting on the bed, listening to music, and talking about something. I had not taken another hit, not done anything. Suddenly, out of nowhere, an overwhelming energy all of a sudden, no choice. It felt like the G-force of taking off in a rocket ship at the speed of light, literally blasting off into orbit. It happened so suddenly, out of nowhere, and it came on immediately, with such utter intensity. Not a moment's warning, no question, no time to react. It's as if someone just pops into existence in front of you, out of thin air, and unfeelingly, matter-of-factly, without any warning, states, "Well, now this is happening." And in an instant, you are swirling down an impossibly powerful whirlpool, drowning in an ocean of incomprehensible immensity. Crushing pressure raining down from all directions, sound rapidly gaining loudness, lights rapidly becoming brighter and brighter and brighter, paralleled by a loud ringing which drowns out anything I dared to think I might know. This same energy felt so many times before during meditation and drug usage, but multiplied by a million. This is far beyond anything I've ever known. I am momentarily overcome with fear. My adrenaline surges. My friends recognized it. It was something totally unexpected, totally unforeseen. For a moment, I resisted in a desperate attempt to communicate with those around me. I believed that they perceived what was happening to me and were as freaked out as I was. They somehow recognized the intensity of it, but didn't know what to do. Neither did I. I desperately tried to reach out to them, but all I could get out were millisecond-long syllables during fleeting periods of some semblance of self. I have a vague memory of friend 2 repeating to me, "Are you good, man?" I tried hard to say no. Words were impossible. I could not possibly resist the thing. I had no comprehension of what this completely alien, insanely intense thing was that was currently happening. I'd done massive amounts of DMT literally hundreds of times. Nothing ever like this. I fought it for as long as I could, which couldn't have been more than a couple seconds. I knew I had to let go of everything, of my sense self, fearlessly just embrace it. I had to trust it with everything, whatever it was. This mysterious thing that was happening to me was something incredibly powerful, incredibly meaningful, something so profound that it would fundamentally alter the way humanity viewed reality. My only option was to embrace it. There was nothing else. Relax and completely give in to this unknown destroyer of worlds. Accept this and know that there's no coming back. There's no way that could ever be possible. I remember red and white Mayan-type patterns fractaling and expanding, overtaking my awareness. I had no control. Before I knew it, I was non-existent. I recall opening myself to this unlimited, amazing energy. My head flooded open. Awareness of the body faded as any sense of me exploded into nothingness. Reality melted away, and all that was left was an extraordinary vivacity. There was no longer distinction between my mind and the external world, no longer any sense of self, just an indescribably vibrant, pulsating, overpowering intensity of being. This unfathomably powerful, conscious, intelligent alien thing had completely overwhelmed me. The intensity came in quick waves, several times per second. For a short time, I regained brief moments of some kind of awareness. Who am I, and what the fuck is happening? My movements were jerky, coinciding with the energy pulses. All sense of who I was or what this world was or anything, everything, was gone. I've accepted my death now. There's no going back after this. I understand this on a very deep level. There's just no way. What the fuck is this thing? Why here? Why now? Why me? What is this, and what does it mean? Now, no ability to even think, no knowledge of who or what I am, no questioning, what is this? Just gone, completely, utterly gone. Nothing but intense pulsing energy. This is beyond death, beyond the death experience. I still believe that, even now, 100%. This is something completely different. The energy was overwhelming, so intense, and so real. In this reality, everything which had happened in my life was insignificant, a farce, a meaningless dream from which I now had awoken. Everything I'd ever known was all leading up to this specific moment, this one intense instant. There's never been anything more real. Nothing before that moment mattered. No thoughts of the past. What past? It was so insignificant, all just preparation for this moment. In this infinite moment, I really experienced the love, pure consciousness, which overcame quickly of any perception of reality. Overwhelming love, pulsating, electric, intelligent, paralyzing, strangely alien love. It seemed to last a lifetime. The next hour or so was a blur. The memory largely eludes me. My friends have been too freaked out to ever talk much about what happened, despite my repeated and persistent attempts. They did say that I was in a trance, somewhere else. I apparently spoke to them at times, speaking words they didn't understand. Apparently I had pissed myself, though it was dry before I could realize it. Mostly though, I just lay on my bed, wriggling around, arching my back, moving my head in circles as this intensely powerful, intensely pleasurable energy coursed through my body. The words "embrace it" repeated over and over. Sometime less than an hour later, I first began to regain some sense of self. The first thing I remember clearly is friend 2 trying to hand me a glass of water. I stared at him blankly, not understanding what was happening. I realized that I just had said no, but it wasn't me. Just like that, I was back. So happy to be back, but things were not the same. The very first thing I did was call for my dog to come to me, which he did. At the time, this action was steeped in meaning. When coming back to life, the first thing, the most important thing, was love. Manifesting that love for my dog, him manifesting it back. I hugged him, kissed him, as I smiled with pure bliss. It was all about love. I felt that this moment would be remembered and talked about for centuries to come. I felt a sense of guilt for putting my friends through that, not that I had a choice. I tried my best to apologize and to somehow explain the experience which I'd just been through. They didn't understand. How could they? I have been in their shoes, on the other side of this situation, and know well the feelings of powerlessness, distress, and responsibility. Several times in my past, I had had close friends lose all grasp on reality for extended periods, both with and without drugs. In most cases, these states last hours, though I have seen them last months or even lifetimes. Still, I do not believe that any of them ever encountered anything quite like this. It's hard for me to believe that. Hard for me to believe that anyone else could possibly survive something like this and ever come back, ever be normal again. But then again, I did. Or seem to have. In the weeks and months since the event, experiences in my daily life have sparked memories of what happened. I see or hear something, and like from a dream, it triggers a memory from this experience, which causes me to feel and re-experience it with brilliant lucidity. Even just reading this document really takes me back. I have jotted down fragmented memories and feelings over time, finally compiling them into cohesive narrative. I've had so many so-called crazy experiences in this lifetime. I've communicated with alien entities, visited alternate realities so incredibly divergent from our own, experienced colors and feelings exponentially more real than what most others will ever know. I experienced technology and worlds far beyond my feeble understanding. I've levitated my consciousness out of my body, flown through the ceiling, viewed my house and my city with full awareness detached from my body. But this, my God, nothing like this. No other experience has shown me how little we truly understand about consciousness and reality such as this. Reality now is a mere shadow, a discarded and forgotten dream compared to what I had experienced. I have not touched DMT in the 9 months since this experience. Frankly, I'm scared as hell. Even seemingly innocuous experiences like getting a vaccination have resulted in fairly intense mini flashbacks of this experience. I believe my psyche is fundamentally changed. How do I integrate this experience into my life? How do I make any kind of sense out of what just happened? How do I know that it's really even over? This question lingers in my mind. On one morning with my friend, I'll call him N, we were driving over to S's house to get some DMT. 2 years prior, I had been obsessing over wanting to do it, reading all of the posts on Eroid, how to mentally prepare myself for the journey and all that stuff, but I was finally excited to do it. There it was. We picked up some crystals and weighed them out. They totaled 700 milligrams. We left S's house and headed to A's. At the time, I kept a bong that A and I shared at his house. We grabbed the Medi-Cali and headed back to N's house. We hiked up to his 3rd floor where there was a lingering odor of Chinese food, specifically steamed dumplings from the previous night. We had plenty of bud and alone time. We loaded up the first bowl with a DMT sandwich using the weed as the bread. I offered to go first. We had put water and ice in the bong because the 2 perks in it were broken due to my own stupidity. We had turned on N's black light and the neon natty light sign just for kicks. We had some music playing, I think What's Beef by Biggie Smalls. It was playing at the time I lit up. The first hit was smooth, fine. I noticed a dramatic alteration in the taste that I'm used to receiving from the bong. The second rip was much more harsh upon inhaling. I got something similar to a head rush. This prompted me to move up from the floor into the giant, black, all-encompassing doggy bedish thing that N provided me. I couldn't keep my eyes closed, but, while open, the loud rumbling from behind me made the room around me shake and vibrate intensely. You should know that I have an abnormally high blood pressure for someone my age. It's not dangerously high, but it can be when mixed with drugs. The rumbling is climbing higher in pitch and in position. I hear it in 2 places, high above me and far behind me. It's creeping closer to me, but higher in pitch. It reaches a supersonic level of sound and then I close my eyes. After closing my eyes, I remember nothing at all. According to N, I was taking short, quick breaths, and a lot of them. He said that he could visibly tell how fast and hard my heart was pumping blood to fuel my journey. He said each beat was a punch to my chest cavity, possibly 160 punches per minute, he said. He was not aware of my high blood pressure and that DMT can be dangerous if mixed with someone with high blood pressure. He told me I slowly opened up my eyes and I was trying to say something, or I was just moving my mouth oddly with nothing but carbon dioxide exiting quickly. I woke up in N's car. I asked him where we were going, what time was it, and where were my shoes. He answered, but I couldn't comprehend it at the time. I don't remember anything until seeing my dad sitting in the chairs provided for visitors in my room. I had a heart attack at age 17. I do not blame this on anyone but myself. I should not have mixed my health condition, knowingly, with a drug that increases blood pressure. Please be careful when taking this journey. It's a lot to take in at once. I started off at around 10 p.m. with a weighed out 35 milligram dose in the vape. I was sitting in my living room and the trip went well enough. I had my eyes closed and I got those colorful fractals, but the main thing I felt during that trip was another entity in the room with me. It was trying to tell me something, maybe a warning about something, but I couldn't understand it. I came back and decided I needed to know what that message was. I waited a half an hour and threw in roughly 45 to 50 milligrams more into the vape. This time, I laid in bed with just a dim Himalayan lamp in the corner. I took off again and I went back to that same place as before. The fractals and the feeling of there being another entity in the room. I could feel and understand those same entities giving me a message. They were telling me to stop doing something. I still didn't know what the warning was. I remember the sensation of being in handcuffs. It was as if the spirits were giving me a stern warning. After I came down from that, I still felt like I was missing something. I still wanted to know what they were trying to tell me. In retrospect, I wish I had the insight to realize that this wasn't the time and I should sit on what I had experienced. I then made the foolish decision to try one more time and see what I could get out of it. I waited another 45 minutes to 1 hour and then packed the vape again. This time, I decided I wanted to try and do a much larger dose than I ever have before. I thought that would be enough to give me the right message. I packed the vape's chamber with roughly 120 to 140 milligrams of fluffy white DMT crystals. I laid down in bed again and took off. It was hard to get it all down, but I managed to inhale everything in one hit. Within 15 seconds, everything went dark, and there was this brown matter pushing all around me. I felt a cold wind and a lot of negative energy. I was seeing this brown stuff shooting out of the room with pieces of black in it. The best way I can describe it, it is like a mixture of thick, dark brown mud being shoved around the room. The black pieces looked like pieces of plastic. It was all moving so fast and I had no idea what was going on. This is when everything went black. The brown stuff went away and it was silent and black for a brief amount of time. Then I felt like my body was being physically pushed into a fetal position. I started seeing and feeling these matte black rods pushing against every inch of my body. This is when I started to panic. I instantly knew that I was in another dimension. I started crying. I wanted to go home. I wanted to scream out for help, but the only sound I could make was this deep, guttural groaning sound. All I knew is that I wanted to go back to Earth. I started just kicking my arms and legs back and forth. I couldn't see my body, but I could feel it. I could feel those plastic rods and boxes pushing against my body with an incredible amount of pressure. I was kicking and groaning, and I realized that this was hell. I felt as though I had managed to do so much DMT that I was removed from Earth and dumped into another dimension that I would never get out of. I was pulling at my clothes and could feel the silky material around me that I started trying to rip up. I kept pulling, and it kept coming down around me. This is when I started to have a modicum of acceptance of the situation. I messed up, and now I would need to pay the price. I had essentially given up. I just wanted to rest, to lay down and have my soul die. I couldn't do this for eternity. I longed for comfort. I decided to lay down and stop fighting, but I couldn't. When I laid down, It was as if those plastic shapes were not only pushing against me, but also falling. It was as if the ground wasn't there, and every time I tried to put my head down, the plastic rods gave way to keep falling. All I could do was keep kicking back and forth trying to get out of that fetal position, and dry heaving was all I could manage. All I wanted was to get comfortable, and I just kept falling through this dark space. I started to really panic and was overcome with sadness. I had accepted that this was my new reality, but I wanted to know what happened to the real world. Was my dog going to be taken care of? What would my parents think? Was my body still in my bedroom, or did I just vanish into this other dimension? Is the world even there anymore? I truly believed that I had pushed myself into a dimension that we are never supposed to see. I then felt this hell I was in morphing. I started to get a vague sense of my room. Although I could sense where I was, everything was still breaking apart, and I thought that this was hell trying to kick me. The room was dark, and those rods were coming out of the wall. I pushed out of the bedroom and walked into the living room. I tried to touch the couch and the wall, but when I did, they broke apart into those plastic rods. My dog was in the corner scared, but she wasn't my dog anymore. She was a terrifying goblin shape. I decided I had to see what was outside and see how far I could venture into my new and permanent reality. Even though I felt it was all an illusion, I was so hot in my house and wanted to see what else this hell would put in my way. Maybe I felt like I could still escape this dimension. Somehow I grabbed my house keys, out of habit probably, and I walked out into the street. Nothing felt real. Everything I looked at seemed to be breaking apart. I started walking up to parked cars and trying to touch them to see if they were real. The thing is, they didn't look like normal cars. They were some sort of futuristic vehicle, and they all had a menacing look. I was now completely convinced that this hellscape was trying to trick me into thinking I was still alive. I could feel the entity that put me here, watching me and laughing at my futile attempts to escape. I walked down my street over to the main road. There were people walking, but when I would walk up to them, most just walked right by me. I then stopped to ask some people for help, and everyone just kept going. I went up to one couple and said hello, and they said hi, and kept walking like everything was fine. I ran up to cars trying to get people to help. The cars were racing by me, and they all looked so much scarier with the lights on. I knew that I was dead, and this whole thing was an illusion, but I felt the dire need for someone to help me. I was screaming help me over and over again. I went up to one guy sitting in his car asking him for help, and he looked at me like I was nuts and shut his window. I don't know that I could even call him a guy. It looked like a goblin, similar to what my dog looked like. I was dripping sweat at this point, and all I wanted to do was sit in a car with an air conditioning and try to get comfortable, considering this was going to be my existence for the rest of eternity. I felt that same need for comfort as I did when I was trying to lay down in my house. He, of course, drove away, and I then ran into the middle of the street trying to flag down cars. All the cars were zipping by me. Nobody wanted to stop. I started walking back to my house, but I decided that it wasn't actually there, so I stopped. I tried to lay down and everything turned into those plastic rods, and I couldn't get comfortable. I eventually decided that I needed the police. I don't know why, but I thought that since this hell was giving me the illusion that I was in the street and still on Earth, that maybe I could get taken to a hospital and just settle in there. Maybe they would give me some Xanax or opiates to calm me down. Even if this wasn't real life, I felt like maybe I could take advantage of the situation and try to get some drugs. I had resigned myself to the fact that I wasn't coming back to my real life and just wanted to get comfortable. I needed someone to call them for me, but all of a sudden, nobody was there. I stood in the street trying to stop someone, and people were going around me. I ended up jumping on the hood of the next guy that was moving slow enough. I lay down with my forehead against this guy's windshield. There was a foreign guy in the car who barely spoke English and was confused and terrified. I was yelling for him to call the police, which is what he was doing. I wanted him to open the door and let me sit down, but I felt that if I got off the car, he would drive away like everyone else. Then I noticed two guys walking in the street who were asking if I was okay. I kept telling them I needed the police, and they said okay, and that they were on the way. They then tried to keep asking me what was going on, and I could hear some lady in the background saying, "He's been calling for help for a while. The cops are on the way." This was when I realized that I was back on Earth. I had been put back here for some reason. I jumped off of this guy's car and ran away from all the people trying to help me. I sprinted back to my house and went inside. When I got inside, I found my room completely destroyed. All the sheets had been ripped off and the carpet was turned over. My nightstand was completely on its side as well. I realized that those silky materials that I felt in the hell were my sheets and blanket. As I returned to reality, I called a good friend who helped me calm down. I had to turn on all my lights and I burned some sage to try and expel those spirits. What I believe to have learned from this situation is that hell is very real and very uncomfortable. It is a never-ending cycle of wanting to escape, but never ever being able to. There is no comfort, no laying down, no sleeping, no eating. It is you trying to relax, but you can't. Every time it feels like you can finally just rest and accept the situation, you find yourself feeling worse and worse. I am terrified of going back to this place. This was my message to stop being selfish, stop trying to control things, stop focusing on money. I need to start focusing on helping others and getting closer with God. I do not want to end up in hell, and this experience was just a sample of what it will be like. I always thought of death as being either heaven or just nothingness. I know now with 100% certainty that there is a hell, and it is as unforgiving of a place as you could imagine.